Hi, I'm Angie, menopause coach, helping individuals and groups to feel more like yourself in menopause. Which begs the question, who are you? Who are you when you are truly feeling yourself? Who is that? And really, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What kind of traits, behaviours, characteristics, and values would you choose to embody if you could? And I'm willing to bet that you already are a lot of those things, but perhaps maybe not as often as you'd really like to be. And you know what? There's so many changes at peri through to postmenopause, appearance and energy levels and cognitive stuff and like memory recall, executive functioning, maybe weight and energy, sleeping patterns, relationships, and motivation and confidence can be wrapped up alongside all of those things with them, sort of interrelated. So it kind of comes naturally that we come to these questions within ourselves around motivation and who we are and confidence within that. And I see it in my clients with things when they ask me about I'm just irritated, or I'm angry, or I'm cross, or I'm low in energy, and we start talking about how to increase their physical energy, and they might say, no, it's not that kind of energy, that's not so bad. It's more like I just can't be bothered with life. And everyone has their own experience of menopause. It's not the same for everyone. Some people will feel this to a greater or a lesser degree. It's not something that's going to creep up on you suddenly for everyone. It's not that. But we all have our own ways of internally feeling these shifts that we go through. And for some people, it's feeling like they're doubting themselves a little bit more. For some people, it's about feeling a bit insecure on the inside. And of course, there's lots of reasons why we might feel that. And those things might have been there before menopause. And you know what? What I always find in all of my clients is whatever was there before, we put a big spotlight on it via perimenopause. So yeah, thanks for that. So a lot of these things, though, I just want to say, a lot of these things that I'm talking about are temporary. A temporary transition and a temporary feeling of around confidence and motivation and doubting ourselves and energy and all of that. It can be a temporary thing as long as we are supporting ourselves through it. Supporting ourselves. Support being the word that I'm really going to focus on here and give you some examples as we go along. Because there's a literal reshuffling and shifting and changing of the brain and the body, and how all these chemicals inside us kind of relate to each other. All of that is all happening within us internally and also within our external lives. So there's a lot going on. And you know what? We've talked a lot about lifestyle factors and hormone therapy and how and other medications and how that can be really helpful, and that can be part of the support. But also, I want to talk about and encourage you to think and reconsider perhaps how you talk to yourself and how that can be part of a supportive strategy. And as important as all of the other choices that you might make around lifestyle factors, food and exercise, and balancing the running with the strength training, and things to do with pelvic floor and all of the lifestyle stuff and the hormone therapy. What about how you talk to yourself? What if we say that's equally as important? Because for sure, yeah, you probably got to this point in life, in your running ability and the things that you enjoy doing by a little bit of pressuring yourself sometimes, pushing yourself. And maybe you're still of the thinking that you need to guilt trip yourself into doing some things that you really don't really want to do, or push yourself hard and almost, kind of bully yourself into doing things. And I'm wondering how that might have worked out for you personally in the past. Has it worked? And also, if you were to take that approach and use it with other people who you are trying to help to maybe change something about themselves or their habits, behaviors, and how they do things, if you try and push and shove and bully them into it, how does that work out? Yeah, not usually so well. And sometimes, talking about confidence and self-worth, what we're really talking about is the feeling of self-acceptance, and whether or not this is a thing for you. It's pretty common to feel when it's often I see it in clients when it's to do with things like memory and work, or reduced performance in their sporting abilities or hobbies, and it's starting to have an impact on how they feel about themselves, because it's all about what they're doing to feel good in themselves, and there isn't quite a solid foundation for knowing that they are accepting of themselves and worthy no matter what. No matter what. Because you know what? You are enough. You are enough. It doesn't matter about the PBs. It doesn't matter about how far you've run or how fast. It doesn't matter about what size of clothes you've got. It doesn't matter about accolades and what people have said. You were born enough. You didn't have to do those things to be enough. And I hope that you can agree with me on that, because it is true. I know it is. But so often when we've got these changes around peri to postmenopause, and there's a lot of changes within ourselves that we don't feel in control of, and we're trying to pull at the strings to make it happen in the way we want it to happen, and it can feel like we're not measuring up, we're not worthy, we're not enough. And when we continue to try to use those changes and use those things to, change how we feel our relationship with ourselves, then we're continually going down that feeling of, if I do these things, if I change that thing, if I'm more of this and less of that, then I'll be enough, I'll be worthy. I'll be enough to receive and accept my own love. That's what it comes down to, as well as the love of others. But the consequences are that at some point it won't work, it'll fail, something will happen and you can't do it, and you won't do or have or reach that achievement that you've relied on to be enough, to receive and accept the love of yourself and others. And then you're not enough again. So it's not a good strategy. I just really want to help you to accept that you are born enough. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. It's just, that's how it is. And when we're talking about being enough, it's not just about love, is it? It's a huge part of it. But it can also be about our relationships with others and how we interact with others. And menopause sees a big shift in that requires some communication as well. And then if we come on to talking about motivation, and I see a lot of people who come to me, and sometimes we're talking about confidence within themselves, and at some point we tend to have a conversation about motivation and wanting to feel motivated to change something, whether it's something they're doing that they know is going to help them, or whether it's something within themselves that they're trying to motivate a different perspective, perhaps. Motivation, though, doesn't come before we do the thing, it comes as we do the thing. So we have to start whatever it is that we're struggling to do to get the motivation so that we can continue doing it. So yeah, willpower is, I'm taking willpower out of the motivation equation because it's a very short-term and temporary thing. Motivation, though, is commonly shifted and changed around at menopause. And the things that we used to feel very drawn to and enthusiastic about, it's not always the same. It can change. It's quite common to change. So motivation, if you're feeling low in motivation, what can you do about it? What can you do about it? So we're not going to push and shove and put pressure on ourselves. If we're thinking about how do I support myself and pull myself along, then it's about encouraging that motivation to occur, to happen. We've got to start something for it to build like a snowball. So motivation really comes from the decision to do something about the thing that you want to do or struggling to do, breaking it down into small chunks, small pieces. And then if that feels too overwhelming, too much to cope with, not enough time, still finding excuses and reasons not to do it, it's still too big. It's still too big. So we would break it down in even further, in the same way that you don't go out and run 6 miles on your first attempt. You break it down. You do a run walk. You don't even run 1 mile at a time. You don't do any speed work. You run walk right back at the beginning of learning how to build this endurance, this running fitness in yourself. It's a run walk strategy, isn't it? So if we take that and apply it to anything to do with lifestyle or even values and beliefs about yourself, it's a run walk strategy. So we take it into really small chunks so that it's not about trying to do it all of the time. We walk, we make it easy for ourselves. We're not trying to make it perfect. Consistency on the small stuff will beat perfection all day, every day. So whatever it is that you're feeling that you need more motivation around, make it a small action that feels doable. And that done over a series of time, over a series of weeks, months, not every day, then it's going to start to become more natural. And then motivation can also be about feeling this similar in a low energy and a low confidence way, that it just feels unfulfilling. There's things in your life that feel unfulfilling. That can be a common thing, and you can feel a bit lost in amongst all of that and a bit detached from, I used to enjoy doing these XYZ things and now I don't get that same fulfillment from it before. And this is part of the shifts and the changes that can happen at menopause. Not for everyone, but sometimes it does happen. And you know what? Instead of pushing and shoving and trying to get ourselves to go back and do the same things that we used to do and feel that same level of motivation and enthusiasm and confidence around it, give yourself the permission to have a break from the pushing and the shoving, a break from the worrying about this has changed about myself and I don't like it. It's a transition, remember, it's a transition. Just have some understanding and compassion around that. And give yourself a break from trying to do it all at once. These changes within ourselves, these shifts that we're not in control of all of the time, they happen gradually. So bringing ourselves back on course, back on centre, needs to also happen gradually. And you need to have some patience and self-compassion around that. And yeah, when you're riding the waves of, and it literally feels that way at times, the waves of perimenopause, riding these choppy waters, trying to navigate yourself back to dry land. Compassion is key. Compassion, self-compassion and kindness. And it's far more encouraging to do that than criticizing yourself. Far more encouraging. And self-compassion is not meaning that you're going to put up with things the way they are. It doesn't mean that you're letting yourself off the hook. It doesn't mean you're letting things go or slide. No, self-compassion means that you're actually, for once, listening to what's going on in here and acknowledging that you have needs, you have wants, and they change, and that's okay. So if you could ask yourself at some point, what do I really need? What do I really need to feel, insert your own words there, to perhaps feel more confident, but perhaps feel more motivated, more yourself? What do I really need to feel at ease and okay with myself? What do I really need? Not just what do I want? And be okay with perhaps the answer to that being partly about shifting the perspectives of yourself, around yourself, shifting and revising perhaps some beliefs, some belief patterns about what's possible for you, and making space for yourself, making time for yourself. And not just always about what do I need to do, not just always about a doing and a practical thing, but what do I need? And you know, the thoughts and the decisions, the stuff up here comes way before we start putting our trainers on. You know, it comes way before the actions around anything. You don't have to be talking about running here. It could be about anything. But what do I really need? Asking yourself that question and really listening to the answer properly, giving yourself some space to do that, can bring up some really valuable answers. And like I said before, you might have got through all sorts of challenges and achievements and all sorts of wonderful things in life by pushing and shoving and talking crap to yourself. But things are different now. There's a lot of changes going on in your body, hormonally, chemically, and menopause is really asking you to reconsider that internal chatter, the thoughts that are going on. We can't control the thoughts, but we can decide which ones are true. Okay, I'll leave you with that. And if you need any extra support on this, there's a lot to cover here. There's a lot of thoughts and maybe questions that might have come up. So I'm always willing to answer your questions.